Perfect. Thank you, Matt. Thanks for coming, everybody. Tonight we have Judith with us. She's the supervisor at the Department of Developmental Services. So we're going to be able to learn a lot about what DDS can provide our kids, the support they offer, how to apply, and who qualifies. We appreciate you coming. And if you wanted to send in the chat, if you had any questions, you can wait right until the end of the presentation, or if you want to enter them into the chat box, we can certainly go over them at the end. It will be recording, like Matt said, up until the end of Judith's slideshow. Okay.
Okay. You all set, Becky?
Yeah, you can absolutely.
I'm on, huh? Okay.
You're on.
Okay. Good evening. Thank you for having me very much. I've always enjoyed doing events like this and providing an opportunity for parents and family members to learn about the Department of Developmental Services. Like Becky said, I'm a supervisor for DDS in the North Central Area Office in Fitchburg. You can see on the screen where we're located. We learned that when our office moved a few years ago, if we told people where Dairy Queen was, that was a really great landmark. Most people can find Dairy Queen or know where it is. So we got very used to providing that information when people were searching for our office. But just a little bit about me, I wanted to share. I've worked for the department, always in the Fitchburg office, for 21 years. I started out as an adult service coordinator. So that meant I had a caseload of adults that lived in the community receiving supports from the department. I did that for about 12 years. And then I was a transition coordinator for 5 years. So I had a caseload of 18 to 22-year-olds, students who were still in school receiving their special education services. And then for the past 4+ years, I've been a supervisor. So currently I supervise children's service coordinator, 2 full-time children's service coordinators. We have a transition coordinator, and we also have autism service coordinators for adults who are ASD only eligible. And I will certainly talk about that a little later on in the presentation. It would be very helpful if I had a sense of, for the parents who might be joining tonight, if you could either put in the chat or just let me know how old your child, your loved one is. It's helpful to me to know the age of the students when I'm talking with parents. "13, yes, okay. So 13 and 7. All right, thank you very much. Let's see. All right, so as you can see, that's me. Let me see here. What's happening? Here we go. So the Department of Developmental Services, for many, many years, the department, we only supported people with intellectual disabilities. And about 7 or so years ago, our eligibility criteria expanded to include people with high functioning autism. So that was really quite a game changer for a lot of people who very unfortunately had kind of fallen through the cracks. There really wasn't a lead state agency that was providing services to people with high functioning autism. So our eligibility criteria expanded to include that that group of people, and it's been quite a learning curve, but we're getting there. So I'm really, like I say, I supervise the autism service coordinator, so I've learned a lot over the past several years. About 32,000 children and adults across the state. That number has probably gone up quite a bit since this presentation is about a year or two old. So we could probably update that demographic and add a little bit more. So that's, that's a significant number of people, certainly. So as I mentioned, in terms of the eligibility, children and children with developmental and intellectual disabilities, excuse me, there's when you're eligible as a child, what's really important to keep in mind is that you also must apply for eligibility upon reaching the age of majority around 17 to 18 years old. So child eligibility status goes up to the age of 22, but determining adult eligibility status is really, really important because it just allows us an opportunity to get to know who's eligible, develop that relationship, and really just get to know the student for transition planning purposes for adult services. So we always recommend applying for adult eligibility between the ages of 17 to 18. I'm going to talk a little bit more in the presentation here about our family support centers. And there are a couple of centers in the North Central area that can help with the application for DDS adult eligibility. Or child eligibility if you or someone is, or for any of the professionals, school district personnel that might be listening, if you know of a student and that you think would benefit from applying for DDS eligibility, then the family support centers can help with that application process. When we talk about DDS, we really do support people across the lifespan. And I think that, it's something that I try very hard to impress upon is that, when you become eligible for DDS services as an adult, again, there's different criteria for children, but once you become eligible for DDS services as an adult, that eligibility lasts a lifetime. I mean, everything we do is voluntary, and there's certainly, we if you're engaging with services and we're providing services, then, our systems allow for just that continued relationship building and having, being available to support families literally across the lifespan. So I think that that's something I try really hard to point that out. So you'll see here 0 to 3 early intervention is providing the supports and services to the family and assisting with the transition into school. And then ages 3 to 18. So when this is really, I'm presenting this obviously from a DDS perspective. So ages 3 to 18, that's the child eligibility age range for DDS. So school really remains the primary source for services. The department funds family support programs, and most of the contact that a parent or family member is going to have is with the school and in the family support center as needed. The 18 to 22, that transition age, older transition age, the school remains the primary contact. The service coordinator, in that age range, there's a specific person, a transition coordinator, who carries a caseload of people only between the ages of 18 to 22 for students who are still in school. So that is the person that's supporting the young adult in planning for adult services with DDS. I can't stress enough how important it is to make sure that if there's any discussion or any planning that the student is going to graduate with a diploma before the age of 22, to contact DDS, or is just leaving school for whatever reason prior to the age of 22, it's really, really important that the DDS service coordinator is made aware of that, so we can really talk about, you know, what that means in terms of services, because there are some factors that we need to be considering when that is when that's the case. And then 22 and over, DDS becomes a primary source for services and supports. Family support services continue for as long as an individual lives with the family. I'll talk about this a little bit later on in the presentation, but you know, when someone is receiving services from DDS as an adult over the age of 22, there's a variety of different services that we offer and what that can look like. So, but as long as someone is living with their family, then they can receive family support services. And I'll talk about that in a minute. Okay. So services for children and families. You'll see here at the center that obviously the family is the nucleus. And the key here, so the services that are in blue, culturally linguistic family support centers, autism support center, and then our family support center. Some of you may be familiar with Seven Hills. They have a family support center on John Fitch Highway. They've existed for over 10 years now, and they really established themselves to be quite a presence in the community. We're very, very fortunate to have the Seven Hills Family Support Center. The Autism Support Center, that is in West Boylston. It's operated by HMEA. So that's more of a regional center that all areas are required to have access to. So the Autism Support Center, as I say, is in West Boylston, and that is run by HMEA. And the Culturally Linguistic Family Support Center in the North Central area, it used to be the Centro had that contract, and that just changed as of July 1st. So Luck now has the contract for our cultural linguistic family support center. So they've just started to, build their programs and get off the ground with their center in Fitchburg. And then the programs that outer circle and that greenish teal color, those are more specialized programs, and I'll talk about them in just a moment. But they require, there's a closed referral process, or again, there's more of a specialized program that might have more considerations when we're thinking about a person that might be appropriate or eligible for those programs. Some of you may have heard of the Family Leadership Series. That's some, if you haven't and you ever do hear about the Family Leadership Series, I would strongly encourage you to consider that. It's a wonderful opportunity for parents to learn more about the legislative process, how our budgets are determined, and network and connect with other family members, learn more about the department. It is, we haven't done it in a while, of course, because of COVID, like many other things, but in the past, it would typically start on a Friday, and at no cost to whoever is participating. The family member is put up in a hotel room, and again, it's just a wonderful networking opportunity for an all-day Friday, various topics and presenters and workshops, and then just a nice kind of downtime, dinner, relaxing, and then it continues into Saturday. If respite is needed for your loved one, there's a way, we can support that as well. So again, I want to really kind of give a shout out to the Family Leadership Series. If you haven't heard about it, please please consider it if you do. And that's certainly something our DDS coordinators, we certainly make parents and family members aware of that when we know it's coming up. It's typically held, I want to say in February. I could be wrong about that, and I might be getting it confused, but in any event, I'm going to go on to the next couple of slides here because it talks a little bit more about some of these more specialized programs. I think it's the next slide. No, it's the next one after this. But in any event, the Family Support Centers, like I mentioned, we have Seven Hills and then Luck. And Luck is the Culturally Linguistic Center. And regardless of what center you might be accessing, Seven Hills, HMEA, or Luck, they all offer the same things. And those are the things there on the left side of this page: information and referral, family trainings, service navigation, social recreational activities, networking, community connections, and family inspired programs. So for example, someone may be found eligible for our DDS services as a child, and they're assigned a child service coordinator, and the service coordinator reaches out to that family, and the family is just, they're really struggling, and they really need help with trying to identify an ABA provider. And they also, their child, maybe there's some equipment needs at home, and there's other needs that the child has, and the parent just really doesn't know where to start, just doesn't know, is feeling overwhelmed and doesn't know where to start in trying to get these needs met for their child. So that would mean we would, the service coordinator would send a referral to a family support center, and we would refer for what we call service navigation. So someone from the family support center, we call a navigator, would reach out to the family and just go through a series of questions and help the parent just prioritize, point them in the right direction, and support the parent with whatever needs that they were identifying that they really needed to have met. What we find is, we're often, guiding a process. There's many things we can't do for people, but we can certainly play a very supportive role and guide a family through whatever process they need to be, managing at that point. I like to call it, helping a parent prioritize their priorities. So that's just an example of navigation. So the person, that navigator would help the parent, manage whatever they need to manage, put some things in place, and then they'd close. And then if something ever, arose in the future, that service, that support can be, picked up again, providing the same, type of outreach and so forth. So that's a very, very, very common family support service that is available. Again, as long as a person is living with their family, they can get service navigation. Some of you may be familiar, as I mentioned, the Seven Hills Family Support Center. They're a very strong presence in the North Central area. They have very active calendar. Their Facebook is very active, and they, if you haven't been connected to the Seven Hills Family Support Center, I can help get you connected. You can certainly go on Facebook if you're a Facebook user, the Seven Hills website, and just kind of navigate through finding the North Central Family Support Center through the Seven Hills website. And if none of those ways work for you, then please reach out to me. Becky can, I'm sure will be helpful if needed. But again, the Seven Hills Family Support Center is very, very active. And so when we talk about family trainings and resources and family inspired programs, they really do a great job. And I would encourage you to try to find out a little bit more about what they offer. And I did, I'm mentioning Seven Hills, and I do want to point out again, Luck, our Cultural Linguistic Center, they just got the contract on July 1st, and I know they're working very, very hard to build up their capacity as well for our cultural consideration. So the specialized programs that were in that outer circle there on the previous slide, I'll just go through a few of them here. So the Children's Autism Waiver Program, it's a program that's for children aged 3 to 9 years old with a diagnosis of autism. This is the only DDS program that has a financial consideration when qualifying for the program. So any other service that DDS provides, there is no income limit or income considerations. This is the only program. And there's an open enrollment period that is actually coming up soon. It's in October. I don't know when, but that's again something that I can certainly find out and get that information to you if that's something that you'd be interested in. And it's always posted on the DDS website. The IFS program, Intensive Flexible Family Support Services, a short-term intensive in-home supports for the family, and the referral must come from the DDS service coordinator. So this is a case management model of service. So it's intensive case management, very family driven, very goal oriented. The family is identifying the needs, the family is identifying the goals, and they're getting intensive case management to help to meet those goals. It is intended to be short-term, 6 months to a year or so. We've seen cases that have been open shorter than that and much longer than that, but it's a very, very much a family-driven program with a very goal-oriented. And the referral again comes from the service coordinator. I do just want to add one thing. The IFS program here, it doesn't come with any support directly, a service delivery type support directly to the child. Again, there's no ABA or any therapies or anything like that. So it's that intensive case management. The DESE DDS program, again, an intensive in-home service for the student to prevent residential placement. There is an open interest period. And this is a program that is oftentimes the child service coordinator will identify a child on their caseload that they think that would benefit from the program. So we just kind of keep track of who those kids might be throughout the year. And when the open interest does come up, we'll start engaging with the family about what that would look like. There's an assessment that's done to determine eligibility, and then the planning would begin if the child met that threshold. And then the medically complex program, children and young adults up to the age of 25 who have complex medical needs, and there's an eligibility requirement for that as well. Again, comes from the DDS child service coordinator. So those are four of the family support services that a referral could be made for. So the transition coordinator, like I say, we have one transition coordinator in our office that I supervise. His name is Brian Riley. I was a transition coordinator for several years, so this is something that's very near and dear to me. The transition coordinator is assigned at the age of 18 and is a person that is available and playing very much a supportive role, particularly during those first couple of years, 18, 19, and young 20, identifying resources and programs and services that the student would benefit from through the development of the ITP. So I can't stress enough, again, a couple of things I think, a couple of important takeaways is when you start hearing anybody on your child's IEP team approaching the age 17, 18, 19, and they're talking about a 688 referral, that is critically important that 688 referral gets submitted. And I won't get too bogged down in this for the purpose of this evening, but the Chapter 688 referral it's a way that the department gets our funding to support people post 22. So it's something that we, constantly are keeping track of students who have a 688 referral, students who need a 688 referral, because it's very much tied to our funding that we get each year from the through the legislative process when we're planning for services for students who are aging out of special education services. So the role of the transition coordinator, I'll say he because it's Brian in my area. Brian becomes much more involved as the student is getting closer to the age of 22. And part of that reason is, again, going back a few slides, up to, put close to the age of 20 or so, 21, the school district maintains, they're the primary source of contact for a family. As the student is preparing to leave school, Brian's role becomes much more active, attending an IEP in that last year to 18 months of a student leaving, prior to a student leaving school, really getting to know the student, sitting at the table, hearing more about the student, where they're at, and just kind of doing some projections and planning about the services that the student would benefit from. And that's where the development of the ITP comes from. And so a few months prior to turning 22, if there are DDS services that are identified, then those referrals would be made for the student for, day services, other types of support that they would benefit from that we've identified in the ITP. And another thing I really want to stress, the DDS transition coordinator is the student's primary link to assistance from DDS during the transition from special education to adult life. And I think, that's just really important because back to the previous bullet here, based on the availability of resources, referrals are made. So Brian in the North Central area office case, he is the person that knows the adult programs that might be, a best fit for a student. Not all programs are created equally. So depending on the student's needs, he's going to be the one that can really guide that process and say, no, that program wouldn't be a good fit for whatever reason. And so it's really important that that connection is established and maintained with the transition coordinator as the student is preparing to leave school. Key components of transition planning. So depending on the service that is being identified and requested, DDS will do assessments. Not for every service, but there are services that we do assessments for. One of them, the example I'll give you is that if a family is requesting residential placement, and in our world, a residential placement, it's a 24/7, either a group home or what we call placement services, or we used to call it shared living. So we would do an assessment and look at, and that would determine a level of priority. So, and the prioritization is based on the urgency of the need. So I can certainly answer any questions there might be about that afterwards. I won't get too bogged down into it because that's a presentation and a topic in and of itself as far as how we prioritize people for services. But that residential services, that is something that we always do an assessment for. And then, like I say, DDS will connect families to different adult services and support. So back to, the importance of keep maintaining that contact and communication with the transition coordinator. That person can really guide and make suggestions as far as the most appropriate support that could meet the child's needs, the student, young adult, I should say. Let me see here. So collaboration is key. I'm sure this isn't the first time you've heard that phrase. So we always, it's super important that that the school district know of a child's or young adult's eligibility status, and that the area office, we want to work with teachers and other school personnel as early as possible. The sooner a person is found eligible, and that relationship building can start, and that collaboration can start. It's just going to help ultimately, most importantly, the student in the long run. But it just is it's a nice way to just get to know one another and partner and be supportive of one another. So I think that it's just really, really important that that school districts, keep in touch with the service coordinator, and the service coordinator is, keeping in touch with the family and the school as well. And let's see here. Yeah, messages around guardianship. Again, I can certainly talk about that if people have any questions. Topic in and of itself, a presentation in and of itself. We get a lot of questions about guardianship and what that process looks like. Adult supports are different from educational services. So as you know, I'm sure, special education is an entitlement. So as long as a student is maintaining their special education eligibility, they're entitled to that up to the age of 22. Everything that DDS does over the age of 22 is based on resources and our budget. So I think that's quite an adjustment. And so as much as we can do to, be talking about that and doing our planning, it's just going to help in the long run, as far as what, understanding how we allocate our resources and how we prioritize. So communication is key, collaboration is key, just super, super important. And I think that is, I think that's it. Yes.